The red prom dress hung in the window of Bella's boutique, like a promise wrapped in silk and sequins. And when Emma Chen pressed her face against the glass that cold February afternoon, she had no idea that this dress would become the symbol of the cruelest joke and the most beautiful transformation of her life, or that the boy who laughed at her today would one day kneel before her with tears of regret streaming down his face. Emma was 17, a junior at Riverside High, carrying 60 pounds more than the other girls in her class and carrying 1,000 pounds more of invisible weight. The comments whispered in hallways, the vacant seats next to her at lunch, the way people's eyes slid past her like she was furniture instead of a person with dreams and a heart that beat just as hopefully as anyone else's. The dress in the window was a size 4, a cascade of crimson fabric that seemed to capture light and transform it into pure magic, with delicate beading along the bodice and a skirt that promised to make whoever wore it feel like they were dancing on air. And Emma stood there knowing it wasn't made for bodies like hers, but unable to stop imagining, just for a moment, what it might feel like to be the kind of girl who could wear something so beautiful. That's when she heard the laughter behind her, sharp and deliberate, designed to cut. "Are you seriously looking at prom dresses, Emma?" The voice belonged to Tyler Montgomery, captain of the swim team, son of the city's most prominent real estate developer, owner of the kind of effortless confidence that came from never having to question whether you belonged. He stood there with his friends, Jake, Marcus, and Devin, all of them wearing their Letterman jackets, like armor that announced their place at the top of the school's social hierarchy, and all of them looking at Emma like she was a joke they were about to share. Emma felt her face burn with humiliation, but she lifted her chin, refusing to give them the satisfaction of seeing her run. "I'm allowed to look," she said quietly, her voice steadier than she felt. Tyler stepped closer, that cruel smile playing on his lips, the same smile that made half the girls in school swoon and made Emma's stomach turn, because she'd seen what lay beneath it, carefully cultivated meanness that Tyler wielded, like a weapon, whenever he needed to remind people of their place. "You're allowed to look, sure," he said, loud enough that passers-by were starting to notice, his friends snickering behind him. "But Emma, be realistic. That's a size 4. You'd need, what, 3 of those dresses, sewn together, maybe 4. The laughter from his friends hit Emma like physical blows, and she saw people stopping, watching, some with pity in their eyes, but none with the courage to intervene, because challenging Tyler Montgomery meant social suicide at Riverside High, and everyone knew it. Emma's hands clenched at her sides, her whole body trembling with a mixture of shame and rage, but Tyler wasn't finished. "Actually, you know what? I'll make you a deal, Emma. A bet, even." His eyes glittered with malicious amusement. "If you can fit into that dress, that exact dress, size 4 by prom in May, I'll take you as my date. I'll pick you up in a limo, buy you flowers, the whole thing. But when you can't do it, because let's be honest, that's impossible, you have to stand up at lunch and admit that you're delusional for thinking someone like you could ever look like that." His friends erupted in laughter, and Tyler looked so pleased with himself, so confident that he'd delivered the perfect humiliation, that he'd put Emma Chen back in the box where girls like her belonged, visible, ashamed, silent. But something happened in that moment, something Tyler couldn't have predicted. Instead of crumbling, instead of running away in tears like he expected, Emma looked him directly in the eyes and said, "Deal." The laughter stopped abruptly. Tyler blinked, thrown off his script. "What?" "I said deal," Emma repeated, her voice stronger now, fueled by an anger that had been building for years of moments like this, years of being made to feel less than, years of accepting the world's verdict that her body determined her worth. "That dress, size 4, by prom, and when I do it, you take me to prom, in front of everyone. You don't get to back out. You shake on it right now, in front of all these witnesses." Tyler looked uncertain for the first time, probably realizing that he'd backed himself into a corner. but his pride wouldn't let him retreat with his friends watching. "Fine," he said, extending his hand with that arrogant smirk returning. "This I've got to see. Easiest bet I've ever made." They shook hands, and Emma felt the callousness of his palm, the sureness of his grip, the complete confidence that he'd won before the game even started. And she used that feeling, bottled it up, saved it for fuel. She would need it for what came next. That night, Emma sat in her small bedroom in the apartment she shared with her grandmother, the woman who'd raised her after Emma's parents died in a house fire when she was 6, and looked at herself honestly in the mirror for the first time in years. She saw a girl who'd been using food as comfort since that terrible night, who'd built layers of protection around her grief, who'd stopped believing she deserved to be seen as beautiful because everyone around her had confirmed that belief 1,000 times in 1,000 small cruelties. Her grandmother, Mei Chen, knocked softly and entered, her weathered face creased with concern. "I heard what happened at the dress shop," she said in Mandarin, the language they spoke at home. Mrs. Liu from the bakery saw the whole thing. "That boy was very cruel." Emma's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't let them fall. "I made a stupid bet, Nai. I don't even know why. I can't lose 60 pounds in 3 months. It's impossible. He's going to humiliate me even worse in May." May sat beside her granddaughter, taking her hands in ones that were strong despite their age, hands that had worked in restaurant kitchens for 40 years to give Emma opportunities. "Maybe the question isn't whether you can fit into a dress," May said gently. "Maybe the question is why a piece of fabric gets to determine your worth. You are already beautiful, Emma, already valuable, already deserving of respect." "But I made the bet," Emma said, her voice breaking. "Everyone will be watching now. If I fail, if I stay like this, I prove them right. I prove that I'm exactly what they think I am, someone who doesn't deserve to be seen." May was quiet for a long moment, and then she said something that changed everything. "Then don't do this for the dress. Don't do this for that cruel boy. Do this for yourself, not to become worthy, because you already are, but to become strong, to prove to yourself that you can set a goal and achieve it, to show yourself that you're more powerful than their cruelty. And if you fail to fit the dress but succeed in finding your strength, then you've won something more important than any bet." Those words settled into Emma's heart like seeds, and in the days that followed, they began to grow. Emma made a plan, but not the kind Tyler expected. She didn't starve herself or fall into the dangerous traps that diet culture sets for desperate teenage girls. Instead, she called her Aunt Sarah, her mother's sister, who was a nutritionist, and asked for help. Sarah drove 3 hours that weekend to sit with Emma and create a sustainable plan. Not a crash diet, but a fundamental change in relationship with food, understanding portions, learning to fuel her body instead of numbing her feelings, addressing the grief she'd been carrying for 11 years without ever properly processing it. "This isn't about making yourself smaller to please cruel boys," Sarah said firmly. "This is about making yourself healthier to please yourself. Whether you fit that dress or not, you'll be stronger, and that's what matters." Emma joined the community center gym, showing up at 5:30 every morning before school, enduring the stares and occasional comments from others, headphones in, focused on her own journey. She started with walking on the treadmill, then jogging, then running, her endurance building day by day, her body slowly responding to consistent care instead of punishment. She took up swimming too, finding peace in the repetition of laps, the way the water held her without judgment, the meditative quality of breath and stroke, and the singular focus required to keep going. Her grandmother helped her meal prep on Sundays, the two of them cooking healthy versions of traditional Chinese dishes, learning together how to honor their culture's food while also honoring Emma's goals. At school, Tyler and his friends watched with amusement at first, making jokes about Emma's lunch containers, her water bottle that she refilled constantly, The way she started taking the stairs instead of the elevator. "Looking good, Emma," Tyler would call out mockingly when he passed her in the hallway. "Only about 50 pounds to go. Better hurry up." But something interesting happened around week 6. Emma stopped responding to the taunts. She'd discovered something powerful in her early morning gym sessions, in the burn of her muscles, and the strength of her own discipline. She'd found a version of herself that didn't need Tyler's validation or fear his mockery. She was doing something hard, something that required getting up every day when her bed was warm and her body was sore. Something that demanded consistency when motivation faded. And she was succeeding at it, one day at a time, regardless of what anyone else thought. Other people started to notice too, but in a different way. Maria Rodriguez, a quiet girl from Emma's English class, approached her one day in the locker room after gym class. "I heard about your bet with Tyler," Maria said softly. "I think what you're doing is really brave. My mom has been trying to lose weight for years and keeps giving up. I told her about you, and she wanted me to ask if you'd mind sharing what's been working for you." Emma felt something shift in her chest, the realization that her journey was visible to others, not as a joke but as inspiration. She shared Sarah's contact information with Maria, and that led to Maria's mom joining the same community center, which led to them working out together sometimes, which led to Emma having her first real friend at school. Someone who saw her as a person instead of a punchline. By month 2, Emma had lost 25 pounds, but more importantly, she'd gained something immeasurable: confidence, born not from how she looked, but from what she could do. She could run 3 miles without stopping. She could swim 50 laps. She could meal prep for a week and stick to her plan, even when her emotions screamed for the comfort of old habits. She could look in the mirror and see someone strong, someone disciplined, someone worthy of respect regardless of what size dress she wore. Tyler's mockery started to fade around this time, replaced by something that looked almost like uncertainty. He'd watch Emma in the cafeteria, surrounded now by Maria and a small group of other students who'd been drawn to her quiet transformation, and his comments became less frequent, less confident. His friends still laughed on cue, but even they seemed to sense that the joke wasn't landing the way it used to. That Emma had somehow moved beyond their reach, into a space where their opinions simply didn't matter to her anymore. One day in late March, Tyler approached Emma alone, without his usual audience. She was at her locker, putting away books, and when she turned to find him standing there, she saw something in his face that looked almost like respect. "You're really doing this," he said, and it wasn't a question. "You've lost a lot of weight." Emma met his eyes calmly. "I'm getting healthier. Whether I fit your dress or not isn't really the point anymore." Tyler looked confused by this answer, as if he couldn't comprehend doing something for reasons beyond external validation. "But the bet was your idea of humiliation," Emma interrupted. "It became my motivation to prove something to myself, not to you, to me. So whether I fit that specific dress or not, I've already won what I needed to win." She closed her locker and walked away, leaving Tyler standing there, and didn't look back. By April, Emma had lost 45 pounds, and her body had transformed in ways that went beyond the number on the scale. She had muscle definition. Her skin glowed from proper nutrition and hydration. Her eyes carried a light that came from self-respect and genuine pride in her accomplishments. Her grandmother cried the first time Emma completed a 5K race at the community center, finishing strong with her head high, and Emma realized that this journey had healed something in both of them, had allowed them to process grief through movement and discipline instead of food and avoidance. She went to Bella's boutique in mid-April, her heart pounding as she asked to try on the red dress. The owner, Mrs. Bella, had been following Emma's journey through the small-town gossip network and looked at her with warm eyes. "You know, dear, whatever size you are, I have beautiful dresses that would look stunning on you. You don't have to fit that specific one." Emma smiled, grateful for the kindness but determined. "I know. but I want to try." Mrs. Bella brought out the size for red dress, and Emma took it into the fitting room with trembling hands. She'd been working toward this moment for 3 months, but she'd also learned that the moment mattered less than the journey. That fitting the dress would be wonderful, but not fitting it wouldn't diminish everything she'd accomplished, all the strength she'd built, all the ways she'd grown. The dress slid over her body like it was made for her, the zipper closing smoothly, the fabric hugging curves that were now defined by muscle and health instead of grief and comfort eating. Emma looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the girl looking back, not because she was thinner, though she was, but because her eyes held a confidence and self-possession that had nothing to do with dress size and everything to do with knowing her own worth. She stepped out of the fitting room, and Mrs. Bella gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. "Oh, Emma, you look absolutely stunning." Emma turned to the mirror, seeing herself in the dress she'd spent 3 months working toward, and felt tears streaming down her face. But they weren't tears of triumph over fitting into a specific size. They were tears of gratitude for discovering that she was capable of more than she'd ever imagined, that she could set an impossible goal and achieve it through discipline and self-love, that the girl who'd pressed her face against this window in February had become someone completely different by choosing herself every single day. "I'll take it," Emma said, and Mrs. Bella hugged her tightly. 2 women celebrating a victory that transcended fabric and sizing. The news spread through Riverside High like wildfire. Ma Chen fit the dress. She'd actually done it. Students who'd ignored her for years suddenly wanted to talk to her. Girls asking for diet advice. Boys looking at her with new interest that made Emma's skin crawl, because she understood now that their attention was just as hollow as their previous dismissal had been. But Tyler went silent. He avoided Emma in the hallways, ate lunch with his friends in tense conversations where they kept glancing at her table. And as prom approached, he looked increasingly trapped by the very bet he'd made as a joke. 2 weeks before prom, Tyler finally approached Emma at her locker, his usual confidence replaced by something that looked like genuine discomfort. "So, you did it," he said, his voice lacking its typical arrogance. "The dress. You actually fit it. I saw the picture Maria posted." Emma looked at him calmly, waiting. "I guess I owe you a prom date," Tyler continued, and he sounded like a man being sentenced to prison. "A deal's a deal. I'll pick you up at 7 on prom night." Emma studied him for a long moment. This boy who'd tried to humiliate her, who'd used her body as a punchline, who'd been so certain that girls like her didn't deserve to dream or hope or expect to be treated with basic human dignity. And she felt something unexpected, not anger, but pity. "Tyler, I'm going to release you from the bet," she said quietly. "You don't have to take me to prom." Relief flooded Tyler's face, and he looked so grateful that Emma almost laughed at the irony. He thought she was doing him a favor. "Really? I mean, thank you. That's really cool of you, Emma. I know you did the work and everything, but honestly, it would just be weird for both of us, you know? We don't exactly have anything in common. And my friends, I'm releasing you from the bet," Emma interrupted, "not because you're uncomfortable, but because I don't want to go to prom with someone who only sees me as an obligation or a joke. I don't want to spend one of the biggest nights of my junior year with someone who had to lose a bet to treat me like a human being." Tyler's relief shifted to confusion. "Then why did you do it? Why did you lose all that weight and fit the dress if you're not even going to make me follow through?" Emma smiled, and it was a smile of complete self. "Because I didn't do it for you, Tyler. I never did it for you. You were just the catalyst. I did it for me, to prove to myself that I was stronger than your cruelty, stronger than my own doubts, capable of more than anyone expected. And I proved it, so I don't need you to take me to prom to validate my worth. I already know what I'm worth." She closed her locker and started to walk away, but Tyler called after her, and something in his voice made her turn back. "Emma, wait." He looked genuinely distressed now, running his hand through his hair in agitation. I was terrible to you. I know that. I've been thinking about it a lot, actually, watching you these past few months, seeing you work so hard, while I just, I don't know why I'm like this. Why, I needed to make you feel small, to feel big. My dad is always on me about being the best, being number one, not showing weakness. And somehow that turned into me being cruel to people who didn't deserve it. You didn't deserve it. The apology hung between them, imperfect and incomplete, but more honest than Emma had expected. You're right, I didn't deserve it, she agreed. Neither did the dozens of other people you've mocked over the years. An apology to me is a start, Tyler, but it's just a start. If you really want to change, if you really want to be better than the person who made that bet, you need to look at why you think putting others down makes you important. You need to do the hard work on yourself that I did on myself these past 3 months. Tyler nodded slowly, looking younger and more vulnerable than Emma had ever seen him. You're going to prom though, right? Just not with me. Emma smiled. Actually, I'm going with the community center's fitness group. About 15 of us who've been working out together all decided to go as a group, celebrating our progress and friendship. Maria and her mom are coming too. It's going to be amazing. And it was. Prom night arrived with spring rain and spectacular sunset, and Emma descended the stairs of her apartment building in the red dress that had started this whole journey. But she was wearing it now for completely different reasons than she'd imagined in February. Her grandmother cried taking pictures, telling Emma in Mandarin that her mother and father would be so proud, not of the dress but of the strength, the courage, the beautiful person their daughter had become. The community center group arrived in a rented party bus, everyone dressed up and laughing, and they descended on the prom venue like a force of nature, people of all sizes and ages, because the group included several parents who'd joined their kids' journey, all of them celebrating not conforming to some ideal, but working toward health and self-love in whatever form that took for them. Emma walked into prom with her head high, surrounded by real friends, people who'd seen her at her most vulnerable during early morning workouts and had cheered her on anyway. Tyler was there with Chelsea Andrews, the girl he'd asked after Emma released him from their bet, and throughout the night, Emma caught him watching her not with mockery but with something that looked like regret and a dawning realization that he'd missed an opportunity to know someone extraordinary because he'd been too shallow to see past surface appearances. But Emma barely noticed Tyler's attention because she was too busy dancing with her friends, laughing until her sides hurt, being twirled around the dance floor by Maria's mom, who'd lost 30 pounds herself and kept thanking Emma for inspiring her journey. She was too busy living fully in a moment she'd earned through discipline and too busy being genuinely happy to waste energy on a boy who'd only valued her once. She'd transformed into something he could accept. Near the end of the night, during a slow song, Tyler approached Emma one final time. "Can I have this dance?" he asked, and there was a humility in his voice that hadn't been there before. Emma considered refusing, but then she saw something in his eyes, genuine remorse, the kind that comes from watching someone you underestimated soar far beyond your reach and realizing that your judgment said more about your limitations than theirs. "One dance," she agreed, and they moved to the floor together, maintaining careful distance, the air between them heavy with things unsaid. "I need you to know something," Tyler said as they swayed to the music. "Watching you these past few months changed something in me. I've been thinking about the way I treat people, the way my dad taught me that being kind was the same as being weak. You proved that wrong. You were kind to yourself, gentle with yourself, while also being disciplined, and you became stronger than anyone I know. Not physically, though that too, but like, internally strong. And I was cruel, and it made me smaller. I'm trying to figure out how to be different." Emma looked up at him, this boy who'd tried to break her and accidentally inspired her greatest transformation. and she felt compassion instead of anger. Tyler, the fact that you're asking that question means you're already changing, but you can't do it for me, or because of me. You have to do it for yourself, the same way I had to get healthy for myself. You have to look at the parts of you that hurt people, and decide to heal them, not because it makes you look good, but because it makes you be good. How do I start? Tyler asked, and he sounded lost. This boy who'd always seemed so certain of his place in the world. The same way I did, Emma said. One day at a time. One choice at a time. Choose kindness when cruelty would be easier. Choose humility when arrogance would feel safer. Choose to see people really see them instead of using them to make yourself feel important. And when you fail, because you will, choose to try again the next day. The song ended, and Emma stepped back, ready to return to her friends. Thank you for the dance, Tyler said, and thank you for being better than I deserved. I hope someday I can be the kind of person who would have asked you to prom because I recognized how amazing you are. Not because I lost a bet, Emma smiled, and it was a smile of genuine warmth, free of bitterness. I hope that too, Tyler, for your sake, not mine, because I've learned that I don't need anyone else to recognize my worth for it to be real. She walked back to Maria and the community center group, leaving Tyler standing alone on the dance floor, and she didn't look back, because that chapter had closed, and new ones were opening faster than she could read them. The night ended with the group piling back into the party bus, everyone exhausted and happy, and Emma sat next to Maria, both of them looking at prom photos on their phones, and Maria said, "You know what's crazy? You did the impossible. You won the bet. But it feels like that's the least interesting thing about all of this." Emma laughed because Maria was exactly right. Fitting into the dress had been the goal that started the journey, but the journey itself had led to so much more friendships forged in early morning workouts, a grandmother who'd rediscovered joy watching her granddaughter heal, a relationship with herself built on self-respect instead of self-criticism, an understanding that worth isn't measured in dress sizes or bathroom scales, but in the courage to keep choosing yourself even when the world tells you you're not enough as you are. 2 months later, Emma stood in front of Riverside High's auditorium, speaking at the school's first health and wellness assembly, sharing her story, not as a weight loss success tale, but as a journey from self-abandonment to self-love. And she looked out at the audience and saw Tyler sitting in the third row, listening with complete attention, his eyes wet with tears, and she realized that sometimes the cruelest people are the most broken ones, the ones who need to hurt others to avoid facing their own pain. And while that didn't excuse their behavior, it created space for understanding, for growth, for the possibility that people could change if they chose to do the hard work. The boy who made the bet that started my journey is in this room, Emma said from the stage, not pointing Tyler out, but acknowledging his presence. And I could tell you that I did all this to prove him wrong, but that would be a lie. I did this to prove myself right, to prove that I was strong enough to set a goal and achieve it, worthy enough to treat myself with kindness, powerful enough to transform my life when I decided my health mattered more than anyone else's opinion. Whether you're struggling with weight, with self-image, with grief, with any of the 1,000 ways we hurt ourselves to avoid feeling pain, please know that you are worth the effort it takes to heal. You are worth the early mornings and the hard choices and the days when motivation fails, but you show up anyway because discipline carries you. You are worth it, not when you fit into a certain size or achieve a certain goal, but right now, exactly as you are. And the journey to becoming healthier, or stronger, or more peaceful, is just you honoring that worth you already possess. The assembly ended with standing ovation, and afterward, students lined up to talk to Emma, to share their own struggles, to ask for advice, or just to say thank you for making them feel seen. And Emma spent 2 hours listening and encouraging, and realizing that the bet Tyler made as a joke had become a catalyst, not just for her transformation, but for a wider conversation about how they all treated each other and themselves, about building a school culture based on kindness instead of cruelty, on lifting each other up instead of tearing each other down to feel superior. Tyler waited until everyone else had left, and then he approached Emma one final time. "I'm starting therapy," he said, without preamble, "talking to someone about my dad, about why I needed to be cruel to feel important, about all the stuff you said I needed to work on. And I joined the community center, not trying to work out where you work out, or anything weird like that, different times, but I figured if I was going to do the hard work on my inside, I might as well take care of my outside too. Learn what it feels like to choose discipline when it's hard." Emma felt pride swell in her chest, not because Tyler was doing this for her, but because he was doing it for himself, making the same choice she'd made months ago to become better than the person he'd been. "That's really brave, Tyler, genuinely. It's harder to change yourself than to change your body." "I'm sorry," he said, and his voice cracked. "For the bet, for the cruelty, for using you as a punchline when you deserved respect. I'm sorry for being so shallow that I couldn't see how amazing you were until you lost weight, which is exactly the opposite of what your journey should have taught me. You were always worthy. I was just too broken to recognize it." Emma surprised herself by hugging him, briefly but genuinely. "I forgive you, not because you've earned it yet, but because holding on to anger about who you were prevents both of us from celebrating who you're becoming. Do the work, Tyler. Be better. And someday, when you really understand what you put me through, when you've done your own hard journey, forgive yourself too." Years later, Emma would return to Riverside High as a motivational speaker, having built a career helping teenagers navigate issues of self-worth and body image. And she would tell the story of the red dress and the cruel bet and the 3 months that changed her life. But she would always emphasize that the real story wasn't about weight loss or fitting into a size 4. It was about a girl who decided she was worth fighting for, worth caring for, worth the hard work of healing, and how that decision rippled outward to touch everyone around her. Even the boy who tried to break her and ended up learning from her instead. The dress still hung in her closet, not because it represented her worth, but because it represented her strength. A reminder that she could do hard things, that she was capable of transformation not through punishment but through love. That the number on a tag or a scale never determined her value and never would. That the most beautiful thing she wore that prom night wasn't the red dress, but the confidence that came from knowing herself, respecting herself, choosing herself every single day, even when the world suggested she shouldn't. And that kind of beauty, the kind that comes from self-love and hard-won strength, never fades, never goes out of style, never depends on anyone else's validation to be real, true, and absolutely radiant.